Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we plunge into fascinating topics to unearth surprising insights and distill crucial knowledge. Today, we're embarking on a deeply personal yet universally resonant journey, the profound act of unburdening. Our focus is specifically on step 5 of the 12 steps, the powerful moment of admitting the exact nature of our wrongs.
Yeah, this is a big one. This deep dive is truly an exploration into the heart of human vulnerability and resilience. We're looking at why sharing our deepest secrets, our hidden burdens, isn't just a cornerstone of recovery programs like, say, Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's a vital practice woven into ancient wisdom traditions and, modern therapeutic approaches across cultures. We'll uncover how this single act breaks the isolation that keeps us stuck, opening wide the door to genuine connection, fellowship, and ultimately, self-acceptance.
So, our mission today is to truly grasp the why and the how of this transformative step. We're drawing from a really rich stack of sources, everything from foundational AA texts and contemporary recovery guides to insightful psychological analyses and even the timeless philosophical musings of figures like Augustine.
Right.
Get ready to explore the journey from secret keeping to radical self-acceptance and discover just how revolutionary a simple act of profound honesty can be for any of us. Okay, so let's start by digging into this concept of wrongs. When we talk about admitting the exact nature of our wrongs, I think it immediately conjures images of, big, obvious misdeeds.
Sure, the obvious stuff.
But the sources suggest it's far more nuanced. They often refer to an unexamined matrix of disturbances that addiction holds at bay. What does that phrase really mean? How does it broaden our understanding of what these wrongs truly are?
Well, it's a crucial distinction, isn't it? What recovery literature consistently emphasizes is that these wrongs aren't merely isolated mistakes. They're
Wow.
more like deeply ingrained personality traits and conflicts that cause us distress.
Okay.
Think of them as aspects of ourselves that, in active addiction, we've taken to an extreme. We start with wonderful and powerful instincts like self-preservation, drive for connection, a desire for achievement.
Right. Normal human drives.
Exactly. But through the disease, these instincts, they get distorted. Instead of serving us, they can turn destructive. And often they're fueled by an underlying self-centeredness that becomes a serious problem. So this isn't just about the actions we took. It's about the very fabric of who we became under the grip of addiction. It's subtle, maybe, but a powerful shift from just doing bad things to being tangled in this whole web of distorted thought and behavior.
That makes so much sense. It's not just a tally sheet, but a whole internal landscape that needs to be kind of brought into the light. Our sources paint a vivid, sometimes really heartbreaking picture of what these wrongs look like in practice. Let's maybe lean into some of those examples because they make the abstract really concrete for us.
Absolutely. And the consequences are just far-reaching. They touch every part of a person's life. So on the physical side, we read about experiences like blackouts, that terrifying blank space in memory,
Yeah.
waking up with no recollection of hours, sometimes even days, of your life.
Yeah.
And this isn't just embarrassing. It leads to real vulnerability, injury, the risk of disease,
Yeah.
even things like traffic accidents or, in really extreme cases, legal stuff like jail time.
Wow.
The physical body, the very vessel of our life, it becomes this battlefield, marked by the progression of the disease, leading to conditions like, fatty liver or the early stages of cirrhosis. These aren't just abstract health worries. They're direct, undeniable impacts on your physical existence and safety.
And the spiritual toll seems equally, if not maybe even more devastating, precisely because it often feels less tangible and maybe harder to put into words.
Indeed. So many narratives describe this profound sense of spiritual emptiness, a feeling of being utterly disconnected
Right.
from yourself, from others, from the larger world. There's often a deep sense of feeling abandoned by a higher power, or even outright anger at that power, which can culminate in a profound loss of faith in anything spiritual at all. This spiritual void creates this kind of internal echo chamber where despair amplifies, leaving people feeling adrift without meaning, desperately trying to fill that emptiness with the very thing that's actually perpetuating it.
That's a vicious cycle. And the impact on family, on partnerships that comes through so strongly in these stories too. Those closest often bear the heaviest burdens, the deepest scars.
Without question. The wreckage in relationships is often just immense. Sources highlight the painful reality of risking or even losing a partner, a spouse, or just witnessing a significant increase in marital problems, disharmony.
Yeah.
Beyond that, the well-being of the whole family is jeopardized. We see behaviors like lavishing excessive attention on one family member while totally neglecting others, creating these awful imbalances and resentment.
Mm.
Or dominating family life with an almost tyrannical rule of iron. Or the opposite, maybe, a constant outpouring of minute directions, where every tiny detail is controlled just to mask their own internal chaos. These actions just systematically erode trust, communication, genuine connection, replacing them with fear, manipulation, and this profound emotional distance.
And beyond the actions and their external consequences, the internal states people experienced are equally crucial to understanding this heavy weight, right? The way they thought and felt about themselves, the constant mental gymnastics.
Precisely. There was this incessant struggle to understand or rationalize their behavior,
Yeah.
to make sense of the senseless, often followed by intense feelings of guilt or shame. It's a torturous internal cycle.
Mm.
Or at the other extreme, you see this defiant pride, an aggressive self-justification that lashes out at anyone who questioned their actions. Denial of the addiction itself was pervasive, like an invisible shield protecting them from this unbearable truth. This profound self-deception utterly warped their self-esteem, leading to a suffocating sense of self-pity just oozing from every pore. Sarah Hapola, in her memoir Blackout, she describes this almost prescient awareness of doom, an airless sensation that I was already dead, even before she admitted she needed to quit drinking.
Wow.
It just vividly illustrates the profound despair and internal blueness that characterize these internal states, like a living death before recovery could even begin.
And the behavioral patterns themselves, they extended far beyond just the substance use. The sources describe a fundamental distortion of how individuals interacted with the world, manifesting in so many different ways.
That's right. The narratives reveal this fundamental hollowing out of personal agency, where individuals would passively let others make decisions for them, just abdicating responsibility. We also see descriptions of being miserly, irresponsible, callous, cold, a real hardening of the heart. Many became irritable, critical, impatient, humorless, constantly on edge. More subtly, individuals describe playing the big shot, this inflated sense of self that actually alienated people.
Right, pushes people away.
Totally. There was the toxic indulgence in harboring grudges, even planning revenge for perceived slights, holding on to resentments like they were precious treasures. And then the smaller, insidious acts that just chipped away at integrity, bottle pillaging or topping off with water to hide consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Behaviors not seen as stealing at the time, but rationalized as just surviving. Each of these actions, whether grand or small, contributed to a profound loss of self-respect and authenticity.
So it's clear these wrongs are not merely isolated bad choices. Not at all. They're woven into the very fabric of personality and mental states, often driven by profound underlying anxieties, forming this complex and painful tapestry of self-deception, broken relationships, and internal suffering.
Indeed. And psychologists like Dr. Jeffrey Schwartz, cited by Gabor Mate, use the term brain lock
Whoa.
to describe the neurological gears that get stuck, causing thoughts to be acted out before the action can be stopped.
Okay.
The brain's transmission mechanism just can't be put into neutral. This powerfully illustrates the driven, almost involuntary nature of these behaviors. It suggests that these wrongs aren't always a conscious, malicious choice,
Right.
but rather a deeply ingrained, almost automatic response to an underlying unease about life itself, what's sometimes called a sense of insufficient self. This deep-seated anxiety becomes the true engine of many addictive behaviors, making them incredibly difficult to break without a radical internal shift.
That explanation of brain lock really clarifies the compulsive nature. It paints a picture where this internal burden, this hidden life, becomes a barrier, not just to others, but fundamentally to ourselves, preventing any genuine self-knowledge. This constant internal battle fueled by secrets must be incredibly isolating.
It is the very definition of isolation. As A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps so poignantly puts it, during our drinking and using years, most of us felt as if we were broken into pieces that didn't quite fit together. This leads to a pervasive feeling of being split, never quite whole, constantly struggling to integrate these fragmented parts of themselves. Holly Whitaker, in Quit Like a Woman, articulates this powerfully. Before sobriety, I was never actually with myself. I was either avoiding myself in a crowd of other people or running away from myself chemically.
Wow. Yeah.
It's a profound and heartbreaking self-abandonment, where the real you is constantly fleeing from itself.
And this self-abandonment leads directly into a destructive cycle, doesn't it? The more shame you feel, the more you hide. And the more you hide, the deeper the shame becomes. It's a feedback loop.
Exactly. Sources consistently explain that shame is a primary driver for avoiding any criticism and judgment. This paralyzing fear of exposure leads to a pattern of lying to and cheating myself for quite a long time, as one person describes it. We hear stories of individuals hiding bottles, rationalizing it not as stealing, but just surviving, which over time just fermented into this pervasive recklessness. These hidden behaviors, born out of a desperate attempt to cope, ironically only deepen the isolation and self-condemnation, creating a prison of their own making, where the internal world becomes this unexamined mess.
So, this unexamined internal burden, what Recovery Freedom from Our Addictions describes as that unexamined matrix of disturbances held at bay by addictive behavior, that becomes the very fuel for the addiction. Can you elaborate on how addiction becomes this, twisted solution?
Well, it's the ultimate, albeit destructive, coping mechanism, isn't it? The underlying disturbances, whether it's I'm lonely, have sex, I'm sad, get drunk, or I'm bored, eat a cake,
Right, the trigger.
they're never truly addressed.
Yeah.
Instead, addiction offers this temporary, fleeting escape from the discomfort. It's an illusion of control, a misguided attempt to self-medicate or fill a void, which only creates more problems in the long run. The internal world remains this chaotic mess that is never truly confronted or healed because the addiction is constantly just papering over the cracks. This ultimately leads to a life that becomes utterly unmanageable, spiraling out of control, precisely because its foundations are built on avoidance and deceit.
So this internal burden, this hidden life, it becomes a barrier not just to others, but ultimately to ourselves, preventing genuine self-knowledge, leaving us feeling incomplete, fractured, creating this enormous chasm within.
Precisely. The courage to change offers a potent truth. When we bring things out into the light, they lose their power over us. This is the inverse principle at play here. When we keep them shrouded in darkness, when we lock away our secrets, they maintain and even amplify their power, silently feeding the addiction and perpetuating the cycle of shame. The only way to diminish their destructive hold, to begin to bridge that chasm within, is through exposure, through the courageous act of fearless admission.
Okay, so this brings us directly to step 5 itself. The core action is so clearly articulated. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. This three-pronged approach seems incredibly specific, deliberate. Why is it so vital to make this admission to all three?
Well, the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions source is incredibly clear on this point. It says, without fearless admission of defects, few could stay sober. It's not just a suggestion. It's framed as essential.
Right.
The text even calls confession an ancient discipline, highlighting its timeless efficacy, across human history. So let's break down this triad. First, admission to oneself. This fosters an essential level of radical honesty, realism. It ends the self-deception and rationalization that were hallmarks of active addiction. You just can't heal what you refuse to acknowledge.
Makes sense. Second, admission to God as we understand him. This connects to the spiritual dimension. For many, this acknowledges a power greater than oneself, which becomes a chief source of strength. It's an act of humility, recognizing that self-will alone hasn't worked, and inviting spiritual guidance and support into the healing process. And third, admission to another human being. This is profoundly important. It breaks the deep isolation and shame that thrive in secrecy. It establishes a real-world, tangible connection, showing us we are not alone and that our wrongs don't make us unlovable or beyond redemption. This triad ensures this comprehensive accountability to our inner self, to a spiritual power, and to another human, effectively dismantling the isolation on multiple fronts. Each leg of the stool is just indispensable for stability.
And this sounds like it's deeply connected to and really builds upon the meticulous work done in Step 4, the inventory. Is Step 5 a continuation, a culmination, or maybe something else entirely in relation to that prior step? It's both, really. It's a continuation and a crucial, indispensable next step. The sources universally emphasize that Step 4, making that fearless and searching moral inventory, absolutely precedes Step 5.
Okay.
The Little Red Book Study Guide clarifies the intention. Inventory is from a Latin word that means to find. We are looking for character defects and shortcomings that cause us problems. So Step 4 is the detailed investigation, the self-scouting mission.
The groundwork.
Exactly. But as the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions explicitly states, an inventory taken alone wouldn't be enough. We knew we would have to quit the deadly business of living alone with our conflicts. The inventory lays the meticulous groundwork, bringing all those hidden wrongs into conscious awareness. Step 5 is the action that externalizes and releases that burden, preventing the inventory itself from becoming just another secret carried in isolation. It's the bridge from self-awareness to actual liberation.
And this process demands a level of honesty that must feel completely foreign, maybe even terrifying, to someone in active addiction. It's what the Little Red Book study guide refers to as stringent honesty.
Absolutely. Stringent honesty is an absolute requirement of rehabilitation. This isn't just about telling the truth. It's about confronting one's entire history of self-deception. It directly contrasts the state of being merely dry, meaning you've stopped drinking or using, but haven't undergone any internal transformation.
Right, you're stopping the behavior.
Yeah, with being truly sober. Those who are dry often aren't willing to learn or change, they just stop the external behavior. But those who are sober are willing to engage in the deep internal work required by the steps. Alcoholism is described as a disease of denial, where rationalization is used constantly to justify unacceptable behavior. Step 5 forces an end to that rationalization. It demands an unflinching, honest confrontation with reality, which is the indispensable foundation for lasting, contented recovery, not just abstinence.
Admitting such personal truths, especially the exact nature of our wrongs, requires immense trust when sharing with another human being. How does one go about choosing the right person for this profoundly vulnerable act? It can't be just anyone, can it?
You've hit on a critical point there. The sources highlight the importance of how to choose the person in whom to confide. And while our texts don't provide a strict checklist, the entire spirit of AA tradition, which champions personal anonymity and the idea that each member speaks only for himself or herself, strongly emphasizes the need for a safe, confidential, and absolutely non-judgmental space. This implies a person with whom you feel a genuine earned connection and trust.
Okay.
This is most often a sponsor, someone who has walked the path of recovery themselves and understands the process, or maybe a spiritual advisor, or even a therapist. The key is finding someone who can listen with empathy, maintain absolute discretion, and offer guidance rather than judgment. It's not a casual conversation, it's a sacred trust.
The AA context itself seems uniquely built around fostering this kind of trust, doesn't it? The very idea of fellowship, providing that supportive, shared environment.
It is, fundamentally. The concept of fellowship is paramount. As Came to Believe illustrates, many early members found solace and a starting point for their spiritual journey by finding individuals who could represent his higher power. He could turn his life over to their care.
Right.
Experience, Strength, and Hope describes how early AA members banded together in some kind of a spiritual belief and found profound power in witnessing simple Christianity imparted with divine power from others. Even the early Oxford group meetings, a key precursor to AA, where people all drew round in a circle to share their deepest truths, set a clear precedent for this kind of communal confession within a safe, shared, and mutually supportive space. The very design of AA helps create an environment where such deep vulnerability can exist and be nurtured.
So it's a delicate balance then, the absolute need for complete honesty coupled with the equally vital importance of discretion, especially when the wrongs involve other people. It's not about reckless, unthinking disclosure.
Absolutely right. And what is the Oxford group offers a crucial caution here against telling the bald, unvarnished facts about themselves, even if it involves other people.
Okay.
It emphasizes that if the truth is without consideration or discretion, it is better to keep a silent tongue and await the decision of our guidance. This points to a deeper ethical framework underpinning Step 5. It's not about airing grievances or causing further harm. It means that God-given counsel is wise counsel. Petty criticisms do not induce a vital faith in God. Truth should not be merely destructive, but spiritually constructive. The ultimate goal is healing and growth, both for the individual and for all involved, not simply disclosure for its own sake. It's about careful, guided, purposeful revelation, not a careless outpouring.
This whole process sounds incredibly challenging. Given the weight of these wrongs and the internal landscape we've discussed, what are the main internal hurdles people face when they finally approach Step 5? It can't be easy to lay bare one's deepest secrets, fears, and shame.
You are absolutely right. It is arguably one of the most difficult steps for many. The primary obstacles, universally noted in daily reflections and other literature, are ego, fear, and pride.
The big three?
Yep. The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions boldly states that 12 steps deflate ego. Our natural propensity toward ego, fear, and pride makes the immediate admission of wrong thoughts or actions a tough task. It's intensely uncomfortable to expose what we've worked so hard, often for decades, to conceal, not just from others, but critically from ourselves. The ego fiercely resists anything that threatens its carefully constructed illusions.
And for many caught in addiction, there's such a powerful, almost desperate illusion of being self-sufficient, isn't there? A deep-seated belief that they can handle everything on their own, even when all evidence points the other way.
Precisely. Many alcoholics are described as an extreme example of self-will run riot. There's this deeply ingrained, often defiant belief that I can stand on my own feet now, a conviction that experience, strength, and hope explicitly warns is a dangerous thought that can lead directly to relapse. This false sense of independence, often fueled by overwhelming pride and a fear of appearing weak, is a monumental barrier to seeking and accepting the very help that could liberate them.
It's a tragic paradox.
It really is. The very thing they believe will save them keeps them trapped.
Then there's the sheer mental gymnastics involved, the purposeful forgetting, as one source puts it, the way the mind protects itself.
Yes, the Little Red Book Study Guide highlights purposeful forgetting as a great obstacle. It's often expressed through dismissive statements like, oh, I didn't hurt anyone but myself, or it wasn't that bad.
Right. Minimizing.
Exactly. This denial is incredibly insidious. It prevents true accountability and makes it nearly impossible to even acknowledge the full scope of their wrongs, let alone admit them to another human being. It's a selective amnesia, a protective mechanism that shields the ego, but ultimately perpetuates the disease by keeping the truth hidden.
Sarah Full's Blackout gives us such a vivid, visceral image of that internal state before this kind of admission, that airless sensation that I was already dead. It sounds like you have to confront a profound despair, a kind of spiritual and emotional bankruptcy before true unburdening can even begin.
That description of blueness and airless sensation perfectly illustrates the sheer emotional and spiritual bankruptcy that often precedes this step. It's not just a passing sadness, it's a feeling of absolute emptiness, hopelessness, profound unworthiness. Step 5 isn't just about revealing secrets, it's about confronting and ultimately dismantling the entire internal architecture of defense and self-deception that has kept the addiction alive. To do that, one must first face the devastating reality of where that architecture has led. It's an act of profound humility, a recognition of our fundamental interconnectedness, moving beyond the isolating illusion of self-control, and finally, bravely stepping into the light.
What an intense journey just to get to this point. But once this incredibly challenging step is taken, once that immense weight of secrets and self-deception is finally lifted, what are the immediate and long-term impacts on an individual's sense of connection with others? How does it begin to shift that profound isolation we talked about?
Well, the effect on isolation is not just immediate, but often described as nothing short of profound. Miraculous even. Daily Reflections frames step 2, which builds that initial trust and belief in a higher power at the glorious release from being all alone. It emphasizes the comfort and strength that comes from knowing someone is always there to share life's burdens with me. And step 5 specifically marks nothing less than the beginning of true kinship with man and God. It directly helps us to lose sense of isolation. It's a tangible, visceral breaking of those self-imposed barriers that kept people separate, locked in their own pain. The weight isn't just lifted, it's shared. And in that sharing, it starts to dissolve.
So it actively builds new forms of relationship and connection, essentially cultivating a capacity for intimacy that might have been completely absent before or severely damaged.
Precisely. A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps explains this process beautifully. It says, intimacy takes place in any relationship where we are willing to let ourselves be seen and known. It happens when we are open and vulnerable and willing to share our innermost self. This is exactly what step 5 enables. By fearlessly admitting their true selves, the good, the bad, the ugly individuals become willing to be truly seen, maybe for the first time. This fosters genuine connection, moving beyond superficial interactions into relationships grounded in authenticity and mutual respect. It's an act of radical self-acceptance that paradoxically opens the door to accepting others and being accepted by others.
And the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous itself seems to be explicitly designed to offer this very substitute for the isolation, offering a new kind of belonging that fills that void.
Without a doubt, the Alcoholics Anonymous Big Book vividly expresses this transformation. Life is better without alcohol. He goes on to say, AA and the presence of a higher power keeps me sober, but the grace of God does even better. It brings service into my life. Exactly. This sense of purpose and belonging is paramount. Contact with the AA program teaches me a new and greater understanding of what Alcoholics Anonymous is and what it does.
Right.
But most importantly, it helps to show me who I am. This profound realization of identity within a supportive community, born of shared vulnerability and mutual understanding. It provides a powerful and lasting antidote to the crushing loneliness of addiction. It replaces the isolating false self with an authentic, connected self.
This shift from profound isolation to genuine kinship sounds incredible. But what about the internal change, the individual's relationship with themselves? Does unburdening lead to harsher self-judgment, as you might fear, or something entirely different?
This is where the profound and often surprising self-acceptance blossoms. The courage to change states that a central theme in AA is learning to accept ourselves, feeling self-worth, dignity, and self-love. This is brought about by positive actions. Step 5, by forcing that act of radical honesty and realism about ourselves, lays the absolutely necessary foundation for this. It allows individuals to truly know and accept who they are, not as perfect beings, but as flawed, striving, inherently valuable individuals. It's about coming home to oneself, not with judgment, but with a new understanding and compassion.
It still seems counterintuitive, though. Revealing our worst parts, our deepest wrongs, would lead to greater self-acceptance. You'd expect more shame, not less.
That's the extraordinary alchemy of Step 5, isn't it? This is precisely where the deflation of the ego and the gaining of genuine humility becomes so crucial. The 12 steps are designed to deflate ego, and humility emerges as a core outcome. Daily Reflections sheds light on this, explaining, humility means to show submissive respect, and by being humble, I realize I am not the center of the universe.
Right. Perspective shift.
It's not self-abasement. It's a realistic self-appraisal, a recognition of one's place in the larger scheme of things. This realization creates the vital internal space for God's help, or the help of a higher power, to enter. It shifts the focus from relentless self-condemnation to a pathway for self-understanding, growth, and connection. It's a profound recognition that while we are imperfect, we are still worthy.
And that profound internal shift directly helps to overcome the deep-seated shame that so often fuels and perpetuates addictive behavior in the first place. The hidden power of those secrets.
Exactly. This naked mind captures this liberation beautifully, highlighting it's incredible to live a life where you don't need to hide anything, where you can be honest with yourself. The act of unburdening directly, powerfully, unequivocally eliminates shame for all who choose to live free. The power of a secret, its oppressive weight, lies entirely in its hiddenness and the fear of its exposure. Once that secret is revealed, once it's brought into the light and shared, its tyrannical power just dissipates. It transforms from a source of shame into simply a part of one's story, a path to growth.
So what we're saying is that the act of revealing our perceived worst parts, far from leading to the judgment we might fear, actually leads to a deeper, more resilient self-love and compassion. It's a release, not a condemnation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Stephanie Wilder-Taylor, in We Are the Luckiest, she articulates this internal struggle so well. I had worked my entire life to try to shape your opinion of me and to avoid criticism and judgment because I was ashamed.
Yeah. The constant effort.
Right. Step 5 allows one to move past that exhausting performance, to acknowledge a more authentic truth. I am a human being human. Sometimes I am my best self, sometimes not so much, but goddamn, I am trying to do better. This honest self-appraisal, free from the crushing weight of hidden shame and the need to constantly perform, is the bedrock of true self-acceptance and, ultimately, genuine self-love. It allows you to finally be at peace with who you are.
Beyond the deeply personal and relational transformations, what about the spiritual impact of this unburdening? Does it simply alleviate guilt, or does it open up an entirely new spiritual path?
Oh, it's far more than just guilt alleviation. It's a gateway to profound spiritual renewal. Step 5 promises tranquility and consciousness of God. It declares that oneness with God and man prepares us for following steps.
Okay.
And as Bill sees it, we learn that AA progress is intricately linked to humility and responsibility, which in turn leads to ever-deepening humility, accompanied by an ever greater willingness to accept and to act upon spiritual development. It's not an end to negative feelings, but an active, expansive beginning of spiritual growth, a new relationship with the sacred.
William James, in his seminal work, The Varieties of Religious Experience, also described these kinds of profound, transformative experiences, that sense of overcoming a deeper despair and finding a new zest for life.
Yes, James beautifully describes what he calls the faith state as a sthenic affection, a vigorous, energizing emotion, an excitement of the cheerful, expansive, dynamogenic order.
Dynamogenic.
Yeah. He notes that, like any tonic, it freshens our vital powers. This is precisely what happens after the unburdening of step 5. It actively overcomes melancholy, replacing despair with this vibrant new energy. It imparts endurance, zest, meaning, enchantment, and glory to the common objects of life. The spiritual renewal re-enchants the entire world, imbuing everyday experiences with profound significance.
And A Woman's Way Through the 12 Steps speaks of this as becoming whole, almost like climbing a spiral staircase. That's a great metaphor for continuous, evolving growth.
As a perfect analogy, becoming whole is like climbing a spiral staircase.
Yeah?
It takes us upward, but also in a circle.
Mm.
This suggests that while we continue to grow and ascend, we revisit similar challenges or themes, but each time with more understanding and a deeper capacity to navigate them. The ultimate goal is to truly let ourselves be seen and known, and share our innermost self to connect with a higher power and with others, which intrinsically increases self-worth and empowers us to act in healthy ways. It's a continuous, evolving journey toward deeper integration, peace, and purpose.
So this deep confession, this fearless admission, it leads not to punishment or increased guilt, but to peace, a profound feeling of being connected to something larger than oneself, a true spiritual awakening.
Absolutely. And, crucially, it culminates in a renewed sense of purpose. As one person expresses in The Courage to Change, this transformation leads to a life where they can confidently say, I've got a purpose in life. I just live it the way the program tells me to, and I do fine. I'm happier now than I've ever been in my life.
Mm-hmm.
The emptiness is replaced by profound meaning, the isolation by a powerful drive to be of service to others, a key aspect of Step 12, and a joy that feels entirely new and earned.
It's truly fascinating how a step from a modern recovery program resonates so deeply with much older traditions. Where do we see these enduring parallels? With ancient wisdom, even early psychological insights, it suggests a universal human need, doesn't it?
Well, what's truly remarkable here is how the core principles of Step 5 just echo through millennia. Augustine's monumental Confessions, written way back in the 4th century, offers a profoundly powerful ancient example. He's often described as far and away the best, if not the very first, psychologist in the ancient world.
Really? First psychologist?
Well, arguably. His observations and descriptions of human motives and emotions, his depth analyses of will and thought, his exploration of the inner nature of the human self, these have established one of the main traditions in European conceptions of human nature. His entire work is essentially a Step 5 writ large, a profound act of self-examination and admission.
So Augustine's own personal journey of self-revelation in Confessions, it's an ancient yet surprisingly modern parallel to this act of unburdening. What did that look like for him? How does it connect to the experience of someone working Step 5 today?
His journey is incredibly resonant. Augustine describes being admonished by these books to return into myself. That was his version of taking inventory, right? A deep dive into his own consciousness. He entered into my inward soul. And through that raw self-examination, he eventually saw the immutable light, but also realized he was far away from thee in the land of unlikeness. This land of unlikeness is precisely the spiritual emptiness and isolation we've discussed. The alienation from his true self and from God.
Okay.
His sins, things like vanity of victory in academic debates, or a profound love of play that distracted him from deeper truths, resonate strongly with the exact nature of our wrongs that individuals detail in their own inventories. It just shows the timeless nature of human failings and the enduring universal need for self-confrontation and admission to move towards wholeness.
And we find this principle reflected in even more foundational spiritual texts, like the Sermon on the Mount, which underpins so much of Western thought.
Absolutely. Jesus' teachings in the Sermon on the Mount, they emphasize a profound internal focus, stating that if one's mental states are right, everything else must be right too. It's a radical declaration that true change doesn't start with external actions, but with an inner transformation.
Right, inside out.
Exactly. It calls for a radical and permanent change for the better in his own consciousness to truly alter outer conditions and bring about a life of peace and purpose. This aligns directly with the intensive inner work of self-examination and confession that Step 5 demands, recognizing that external behaviors are symptoms of internal states that need healing.
The idea of forgiveness also seems central here, particularly regarding the spiritual concept of sin as separation.
Yes, it's a critical link. The Sermon on the Mount explicitly states the forgiveness of sins is the central problem of life, and it defines sin not merely as breaking a rule, but as a sense of separation from God, rooted in selfishness.
Separation rooted in selfishness.
Okay? From this perspective, the act of unburdening, of admitting our wrongs and our self-centeredness, becomes a direct path to heal this separation. It's about reconnecting the individual to their true self, to others, and to a higher power, which is fundamental to any meaningful and lasting recovery. It's an act of seeking reconciliation on all levels.
So the core idea that self-knowledge and admitting our inner truths are essential for genuine transformation isn't new at all. It's a profound thread woven through centuries of human understanding, whether religious, philosophical, or psychological.
Indeed. And William James, that towering figure in psychology and philosophy and the varieties of religious experience, he speaks directly to this. He identifies the human sense of separateness from that divine energy which we call God as the first underlying cause of all sickness, weakness, or depression.
Wow, the first underlying cause.
Right. And crucially, he posits that affirming the profound truth, I and my Father are one, is the ultimate path to healing. This powerful insight from both psychology and spirituality underscores that the act of unburdening isn't just a recovery tool, it's a fundamental human need for wholeness, reconnection, and well-being that transcends any specific doctrine.
Moving from these ancient philosophical and spiritual roots to more modern frameworks, how has the unique structure of AA itself, particularly its emphasis on anonymity and pluralism, created such an effective space for this ancient practice of confession to truly thrive today?
Well, what's truly groundbreaking about AA is how its very structure facilitated this. The book, Not God, explains that AA committed itself to rejection of any claim to a role as one and only.
No monopoly.
Exactly. This pluralism of tolerating difference and the mantra, we have no monopoly on God, are foundational. They mean AA is explicitly welcoming to diverse beliefs and spiritual paths, which is absolutely crucial for Step 5 to be accessible and effective for anyone, regardless of their religious background or lack thereof. It removes the barrier of dogma, allowing individuals to define their higher power in a way that resonates personally and authentically.
And anonymity, which seems like such an intrinsic, almost mysterious tenet of AA that must play an enormous role in enabling such profound vulnerability. It creates a cloak of safety.
Absolutely. Anonymity is the bedrock, as the language of the heart beautifully puts it. Anonymity is the spiritual base, the sure key to all the rest of our traditions. It fosters prudence and self-effacement, protecting members from both personal public acclaim, which can feed ego, and, more importantly, from the devastating stigma that was, and in some cases still is, attached to alcoholism. This safety allows for the deepest, most honest disclosure without the paralyzing fear of public repercussions, which was a very real existential concern for early members who feared the consequences of being publicized as alcoholics. The guarantee of anonymity creates a truly safe harbor, a sacred space for sharing the deepest, most guarded secrets.
So it's not just the safety of anonymity, but also the collective shared experience of hearing other stories in meetings that normalizes one's own struggles and makes this step possible. You realize you're not uniquely flawed. Exactly. Living Sober highlights the startling sincerity and honesty you hear in meetings, where a wide variety of actual case histories of alcoholism are shared without judgment. This environment normalizes the wrongs, the character defects, the experiences of shame and self-deception. It creates a powerful sense of belonging, validating the individual's experience by showing them, unequivocally, that they are not alone in their struggles. It replaces isolation and shame with connection, empathy, and the profound relief of shared humanity.
So the collective wisdom and unique open structure of AA essentially create a modern, profoundly safe container for this ancient, transformative personal work, making the unburdening both possible and deeply healing, much like those ancient traditions, but perfectly adapted for contemporary needs. Precisely. The Experience, Strength, and Hope collection itself, filled with stories from early AA members who were still a little unsure and afraid of this thing they had found, truly underscores the enduring power of shared vulnerability. It's a testament to the fact that when these deeply human, almost universal principles are put into practice within a supportive, understanding, and anonymous framework, they can indeed lead to profound and lasting transformation, guiding individuals from despair to a life of peace, purpose, and genuine connection. Hashtag tag outro par.
What an incredible deep dive into Step 5. We've seen how admitting the exact nature of our wrongs isn't just a step in a program, but really a fundamental human need. A courageous act to shed the crippling weight of secrets, shame, and that suffocating isolation. It's a path to stringent honesty with ourselves, our higher power, and another person, opening the door to true kinship, profound self-acceptance, and ultimately a powerful spiritual renewal. It's about recognizing that when we bring things out into the light, their hidden power over us truly begins to dissolve.
And that's the powerful invitation of step 5, isn't it? If the act of bringing our hidden wrongs, those deep-seated fears, pride, and ingrained self-deceptions, into the light is indeed the cornerstone for finding peace, building self-worth, and forging genuine connection, then consider this. What quiet act of honest admission, however small it might seem, might be waiting for you to take that first brave step towards unburdening? What truth, once spoken aloud to a trusted confidant, or maybe simply acknowledged with radical honesty just to yourself? What truth could finally lose its power over you and become a source of profound strength, freedom, and renewed purpose in your life? It's definitely a question worth sitting with.